All right, guys, welcome to my first video of the weekend. I will be posting my season 2, episode 6 predictions tomorrow before the episode, but this video will cover, and I just realized that my head is over the Aaron sigil a little bit, guys, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to edit that. You guys all know that's the Aaron sigil. But anyways, this video, guys, will be the House of the Dragon map, Dance of the Dragons geography as of right now up to season 2, episode 6, who is on which side at this point. This video will highlight, according to the TV show, with some assistance from the book, which houses are on which side at the point right before season 2, episode 6. I will also compare and contrast it to my personal prediction map, which you see on the left. That is supposed to be, that was my prediction at the end of episode 3 of the season, so that's how I thought the map would look. It doesn't totally look like that, so that's why I'm making this video, guys. I think it'll be a fun one. That map you see is the one created. I already said that. Also, guys, I do not think I will be covering every single kingdom. I'm really only going to go in depth on the divided kingdoms, which are the crownlands, the riverlands, and the reach. Those are the most divided kingdoms. I won't even be touching the Iron Islands and Dorne at this point, because they kind of seem to be totally. Dorne's for sure out of the fray. They're neutral because they're not even part of the Seven Kingdoms, and we've only heard one mention of the Iron Islands about Dalton Greyjoy, so I'm not going to include them either. And additionally, for the Black and all Green Kingdoms, the North, the Vale, the Westerlands, and the Stormlands, I will just be briefly covering. Also, I ordered a Team Green shirt, guys, because I feel like I'm being biased with my Team Black apparel, and my friends, as you can see, my friends like to say, my close friends like to say that I'm Team Green. I'm not Team Green, guys. I really am Team Small Folk. They're the ones that are getting screwed. But the only reason I sometimes like the Greens a little more than the Blacks is just because I think they're more interesting characters. I think the show has done a better job of developing the Greens and the Blacks, but that's a side note. And one last thing I already said, let's look out for my season 2, episode 6 prediction video tomorrow before the episode. And please like and subscribe to the content if you can, guys, and let's get into it. All right, so the first divided kingdom is the crownlands. So by this point in time, the crownlands are split 50-50. 6 greenhouses and 5 black houses. However, I would consider the crownlands a green majority controlled kingdom because they have all of King's Landing, which is the biggest city in Westeros, and the mainland of the crownlands. The blacks at this point really only have the 3 islands, Crackclaw Point and Massey's Hook, and I'm not even sure if they have the entirety of Massey's Hook at this point. So continuing on, as you can see, the green arrows obviously indicate the greenhouses in the crownlands, and the red arrows indicate the Rhaenyra sworn houses at this point. But to my prediction was pretty accurate because remember, this is where I thought the map would look like at the end of episode 3. So Kristen hasn't marched on the mainland crownlands at this point. So Rhaenyra has the eastern half of the crownlands essentially, and Aegon, well now Aemond, has control of King's Landing and the western half of the crownlands, as you can see from the map. We will most likely see shifts in the crownlands by the end of the season. In fact, I can say that with some form of certainty that the crownlands are again gonna kind of switch here. But that is it for the crownlands. Again, you can see all the houses on the left, and their sigils, and guys, do definitely recommend New Glarus Spotted Cow. It's delicious. You can only get it in Wisconsin, but it's a delicious beer. Definitely recommend it. Anyways, let's move on to the Riverlands. This will be a doozy, guys. So the Riverlands is probably tied with the Reach, the most divided area, the most divided kingdom. I was pretty damn wrong on the Riverlands because it seems that the kingdom is more for Rhaenyra overall, but we now find out that many lords will not support Rhaenyra in the kingdom because of Daemon's war crimes, which we hear about at the end of episode 5. I thought at this point as you can see, the entirety of the Riverlands would be black. But does this mean that they are supporting Aegon? As you can see, the 4 lords were like, no, Daemon, we're not going to support you. Does that mean it's not clear? That is why I left the houses as neutral, as you can see there in purple. The purple will represent neutrality, guys. So it is not clear that they're joining the Greens, those 4 lords. And technically, the Brackens have bent the knee to the Blackwoods and the Blacks, which we hear about in episode 5. So we can assume what is left of the Bracken army is now on Team Black. As you can see, Stonehenge, I pointed with the red arrow. And again, all the purple arrows will be the neutral houses. I thought at this time Daemon and the Blacks would have control over the entire kingdom. In fact, in the books by this time they do. The show switched that up on us. My map should have actually had more neutral territory and coloring in the Western Riverlands specifically. As you can see on the right map, I used purple arrows to indicate the neutral houses. And okay, guys, I'll admit it, this is where I had to do some guessing. I did the best possible job with researching who these four lords are because they didn't even have sigils. I even watched the show. There was no like closed captioning of who these lords are. I watched the end of the show, no closed captioning. A lot of this, I'm going to be honest, I'm basing off Alt Shift X's guesses, and at least one of those lords is a dairy and a piper. But my guess, guys, left to right on the picture at the bottom is the first lord is Lord Smallwood of Acorn Hall, Lady Derry of Derry, Lord Vance of Wayfarer's Rest, and Lord Piper of Pink Maiden. The only reason I say that Lord Piper is that guy on the right is because apparently in book lore, the Pipers of Pink Maiden, which you can see with the purple arrow pointing towards it, towards Pink Maiden, they are like apparently always gingers for some reason. They're always red hair. So he looked like the closest one. So that was my guess there, guys. And guys, remember that the Tullys are technically not fully Team Black yet. Even though we saw Oscar Tully meet with Daemon, it doesn't seem apparent that the Tullys are on the Blacks fully. So we'll leave them now as neutral, but I think that'll change. Okay, so the ones that are not as obvious for Team Black is House Mallister and Mooten, as you can see in the Black section. House Mallister with the purple sigil and House Mooten with the red fish sigil. So House Mallister Seaguard, which you can see I pointed out on the map near the twins, is spoken of when Rhaenyra speaks with Jace at the end of episode 5 about the dragon seeds. Rhaenyra says, so we will put a Mallister or a Tarly on a dragonback. We can infer from this show quote that the Mallisters of Seaguard are also Team Black, along with the Tarlys and the Reach, who we'll get to in the next section. The Mootons were also mentioned by Rhaenyra in episode 5 when she is talking to her small council to give aid to Crackclaw Point in the Crownlands, which we saw in the previous slide, and Maidenpool. So Maidenpool, guys, is actually on the border of the Riverlands and Crownlands, but I consider it more of a Riverland house, and they're actually pretty significant. They have a pretty big military, and they're a pretty big house. But as of now, that is where the Riverlands stands. Let's get into the next more contentious region at this point, the Reach. So the Reach, guys, this is fun. So again, I do recommend always looking at the maps. I think they'll help you to see red, green, who's on which side. Okay, so like the Reach, like the Riverlands, the Reach is incredibly divided. I actually think it is essentially a 50-50 breakdown in houses, as you can see. However, I also put the Reach as the Greens because I think the Greens at this time have all the big, major, and rich castles. Old Town, the Arbor, and a prediction, guys. Prediction here. Maybe we'll be in a prediction video I am making, which is different from the show. Highgarden. So Highgarden, as you can see in the map on the left when I drew this, was I put them as neutral because that's how they are in the books. They said they were going to stay neutral because their kingdom was divided. But again, guys, since the show has not discussed the Reach very much, I'm going to have to make some guesses and predictions here. But I think this will be fairly show accurate once we get to the point of view of the Reach. Okay, so obviously House Hightower is for the Greens, and the Red Wines would be too, because the houses have very close ties, and we know from book canon for this to be true. But here's, again, my wild prediction, in my opinion. Otto convinces the Tyrells to join the Greens, because remember, at the end of episode 2, guys, Otto is dismissed from the Green Council and has dismissed his hand, and he's like, I'm going to go back to Old Town to hang out with your son and my grandson, Darren. Darren's awesome, guys. Love Darren the Daring. And he's like, I'm going to do that, try and convince Darren to, be a good leader or whatever. We don't really know, but Allison says, no, you should go to Highgarden and visit the Tyrells. So I think in the show, they're going to switch this up and make the Tyrells go green. Again, the Tyrells are a big house. In fact, they are the liege lords of the Reach Lords, guys, even above the Hightowers on the political totem pole. So this will be a really big win for the Greens if they can get the Tyrells of Highgarden. And I'll love to see I'd love to see that happen. Honestly, I want to see more reach. I think a lot of people do. Um, okay, so House Fossaway of Cider Hall, House Peak of Starpike, and House Blackbar of Vandalon, I think, will also be Team Green because they are just rebellious lords who always go against the rightful ruler, especially the Peaks during the Blackfire rebellions. That'll take its own video itself. We'll shout out again Alt Shift X. I would highly recommend guys watching the Blackfire Rebellions Alt Shift X video. It's probably one of the best Game of Thrones YouTube videos on YouTube. It's like amazing. He breaks down the entire Blackfire rebellions in like 5 episodes. It's pretty impressive. Or in like 30 minutes. I don't know why I said 5 episodes. In like 30 minutes, he breaks down the entire Blackfire rebellion. Super interesting happens after the dance. And those three houses are on Team Green according to book canon. And House Florence, guys, of Brightwater Keep will be Team Green as well because I think we find out that Allison's mother, Otto's wife, was a Florent. So they're the Florents of Brightwater Keep. And like I previously mentioned, it is said in episode 5 that the Tarleys, not directly, are on Team Black. It's not directly said, but it's inferred that the Tarleys are on Team Black because Rhaenyra's like, we're gonna put a Tarly or a Mallister on Dragonback, so I'm assuming that Tarleys are on Team Black. House Rowan of Golden Grove, which you can see also highlighted in red top of the map, and House Costain of Three Towers, lower in the map near Old Town, are very powerful houses in the Reach. In fact, Golden Grove is very big, at least it's a castle, we can assume, because that is the location all of the Reach Lords and the Western Lords gathered to fight Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives before the Field of Fire, which is a really big war in Aegon's Conquest. I will be having a very long Aegon's Conquest video coming out in about probably 2 months. House Footley of Tumbleton up in the very top right from the book, and House Caswell from the show, also kind of by Tumbleton, as you can see with the arrows. We can assume they are for Rhaenyra. And of course, House Beesbury is staunchly behind the Blacks because Criston Cole killed their lord's dad, Lord Beesbury, which we saw Criston just, murk that guy, put his head into a ball. That was kind of crazy, I thought. But yeah, they're definitely fully behind Rhaenyra. And there's going to be a very significant battle at Honeyhold, where the Beesburys, that's their castle, Honeyhold. There's going to be a very significant battle in season 3 there, guys. Also, fun fact, the Beesburys are considered to be first men. I believe the only first men in the Reach. So that's kind of a fun little fact. But again, hopefully we see Otto in the Reach this season to let the viewers see who is on which side in the Reach. Additionally, I think next season when Darren comes into the show, we will get a better and more consistent point of view in the Reach. So we have that to look forward to. So that is the Reach, guys. Pretty much 50-50 with probably a slight lean towards the greens. Let's get into the houses that are all black and all green. So the North and the Vale, obviously all black. I was correct on that prediction. It was pretty obvious that all of the North and pretty much all of the Vale will be joining the Blacks. So for the next 2 sections, guys, I'll only be highlighting some broad themes and generally what is going on in these kingdoms. The reason is because, again, the North and Vale are entirely for the Blacks, as we all know, and the Westerlands and Stormlands are entirely for the Greens. Additionally, I did not include every single house in the North and the Vale, just like the Westerlands and Stormlands, just the biggest and most significant houses during this time. So obviously, I was pretty right with my own map, which I said previously, but again, I'm not going to brag about that. These 2 kingdoms were pretty obvious from book canon. The North will be interesting, guys, especially now that we know that Jace got the Freys and the twins to side with the Blacks, which I actually did think was pretty cool. It'll be and shout out to Vermax. We got to see Vermax briefly again. It'll be much easier for the Northmen to march directly into the Riverlands, like we see in Game of Thrones with Robb and the twins. So maybe there's some parallel there, guys. Who knows? I'm not going to spoil anything there. But instead of having to march directly, like around basically and go almost more towards the crownlands, they can go directly into the Riverlands now, the Northmen, which will be very beneficial for the Blacks. Cregan said that he will send 2,000 older wolves or something like that down south until we are assuming he can gather his entire army. Because again, guys, the North is huge. It'll take a very long time to like get all these lords and everyone together. But those 2,000 men will be called the Winter Wolves. I think we'll for sure see this in the show, and will gather at Barrowtown, as you can see with the red arrow on the right map of the North. This is controlled by House Dustin, which you can see is about 300 miles southwest of Winterfell. So we will hopefully see in early season 3, this is probably won't happen in season 2, how impactful the Winter Wolves and the North will be for Rhaenyra's cause. All right, we have now seen the Vale in the show, which is fun. Some fans have been disappointed and have argued the Vale in Game of Thrones was cooler looking, and I think I agree. Actually, in Game of Thrones, we saw 2 different views of the Vale. Season 1 was the Vale was different than season 4, but whatever. But we do know the Vale now is officially on the side with the Blacks after Rhaena has that conversation with Lady Jane. Lady Jane was frustrated because Rhaenyra sent her 2 smallest dragons, Tyraxes with Joffrey and Stormcloud with Aegon the Younger. But to be fair, what is Rhaenyra supposed to do? They are in a war. She needs her fighting dragons. I would like to see Tyraxes this season, but it does not seem likely. And eventually, Lady Jane seems to agree and seems to be understanding and finally fully sides the Blacks. Also, one last question I have, and I think you guys will all agree. Will the Royces go against their liege lord and go for the Greens because of the whole Rhea Royce situation and Daemon murdering her from season 1? But I'm still going to assume that the entirety of the Vale is in the Blacks until we hear otherwise. But that could be an interesting, very small like subplot point. All right, let's get into the last 2 kingdoms. All right, the Westerlands and Stormlands. Again, my map prediction here was pretty accurate, but again, it's pretty obvious if you read Fire and Blood, and that those 2 kingdoms would be fully behind Aegon II. However, once I get to the Stormlands section, I will discuss some caveats with that, actually, guys. In fact, Aegon, well now Aemond, has 2 lords from these regions on his small council. Tywin Lannister, the twin of Jason Lannister of, the Lannisters, and Lord Jasper Wilde is from Rainhouse in the Stormlands, as you can see from the map. So Rainhouse is where Jasper Wilde is from, which is in the far right map, far bottom right map. You can see Rainhouse under Shipbreaker Bay and Cape Wrath. That is where Jasper Wilde, who is the black-haired guy on the Council of Aegon, that's where he's from. So the entirety of the Westerlands is on Team Green, and we know this through Tywin's point of view. He says that his brother Jason is gathering a large host at the Golden Tooth, which you can see on the Westerlands map to the right with the green arrow. Yes, even House Westerling will be Team Green. Also, side point, I hope they bring him back with Lord, like how they brought back Sir Barristan Selmy, and he sides with the Blacks. That would be cool parallelism between the 2 shows and a good overall subplot. So I think they're going to hopefully bring back Lord Westerling, because honestly, Rhaenyra's Kingsguard is doesn't seem like she has a pretty strong Kingsguard right now. What does she have, like 2 guys on it? So I think they're going to bring Lord Westerling maybe back in season 3 like they did with Barristan Selmy. And ironically, Barristan Selmy left in season 1 and came back in season 3 of Game of Thrones. So much fun, guys. All right. But in fact, it looks like from the episode 6 trailer, we will see the Lannister host on the move toward the Riverlands. So that's something exciting. Hopefully we see a little bit more war and battle this episode. We do see, again, the Westerlords marching in this trailer. The Western Lords, like the Northerners, generally stay loyal to the Lannisters in their will. The only house I can think of in the Westerlands that it won't be on Team Green is a smaller house, and that's actually House Broom. Their House Broom is located most likely somewhere near the Golden Tooth, and as we know, Alfred Broom is on the Black Council and is constantly causing Rhaenyra headaches. So maybe after going to Harrenhal, which we find out that she sends Alfred Broom to go to Harrenhal, next episode, Alfred won't be able to convince Daemon, which I don't think he will be able to, and will turn rogue and join the Greens. So be on the lookout for that one, guys. Hopefully I get that right. But again, the Westerners have a large army and a lot of wealth, so they will be a huge help to the Greens. Also, random fun fact for you all: the blonde Kingsguard, kind of forgetting his first name, who's Aegon's friend and becomes a Kingsguard this season, is a Rain. So he's actually a Rain. And we all know what happens to them 130 years after the Dance of Dragons. Good old Tywin Lannister's got his hands on that rebellious house. But that's for another video. Okay. So for the Stormlands, the reason you see those arrows is because even though this is where my caveat comes in, guys. So even though the show is not discussing it, and not even really in the books, my assumption is that there will be like a micro civil war, like smaller than what's going on in the Reach or the Riverlands, in the Stormlands during this period. So the three locations that have red arrows pointing to them are Haystack Hall, uh, I didn't, yeah, Bronzegate and Fellwood, excuse me. We see that Lady Fellwood and most likely the Lord of Haystack Hall being imprisoned during the Green Council, season 1, episode 9. That's when the the man and the woman, which it's definitely Lady Fell, and it's either the Lord of the Haystack Hall or Lord Buckler of Bronzegate. I don't think it was definitively said to us. They both get imprisoned by the Greens because they're like, we're not going to join Aegon's side. We're going to join the Blacks and stay true to our word. That's also book canon that the Bucklers of Bronzegate and all these, the Fells and Haystack Hall all joined the Blacks. But so basically, the Northern Stormlords sided with Rhaenyra, even though we see in episode 10 of season 1 that the Baratheons sided with the Greens. My assumption then is there will be a civil war in the Stormlands that we won't get to see, but we may get to hear about later on in season 3. But eventually, the Baratheons and the Southern Stormlords will defeat the Bucklers, the Fells, and the Errolls. The Errolls are the ones from Haystack Hall. That is why I did not put any of them as a major house on the left side of the screen under the Stormlands. Even though these three houses are powerful compared to some other Stormlander houses on the screen, as you can see, like House Merton, their armies and people will pretty much be destroyed from the Stormlands Civil War. Again, probably a micro civil war, and we'll probably get maybe like one piece of dialogue in season 3 about it. But with that, I am done. Guys, please look out for my season 2, episode 6 prediction video that will be coming out tomorrow before the premiere at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Looking forward to it, and peace out, guys. Please like and subscribe if you can.